Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn about the pharmaceutical legislations. But before we start, we need to know that what are the legislations. So legislations are nothing but the group of law, or you can say the process of making different kind of laws. But then what do you mean by law? It is nothing but the rule of action established by authority. It is usually the government authorities, a statute, rules of community or state, etc. So, in short, the rules given by any community, central authority, or state authority are called as law. Now, if we talk about the pharmaceutical legislations, then these pharmaceutical laws are usually associated to pharmacist, drug, medicine, cosmetics, and to any substances which are related to the health of the society. So, what are the objectives of these pharmaceutical laws? The main objective is to ensure that whatever the drug is received by a patient, it should be of required quality, it should be tested and evaluated for its safety as well as efficacy for their intended results. Now let's see some of the history of Indian pharmaceutical legislations. Before 20th century, there were no laws to control drugs or to control the pharmacy profession in India. During the First World War, numerous cheaper drugs were introduced, or you can say imported, in India due to their requirement at that particular time. And because of that, Indian market was flooded with various inferior quality drugs. Because of that, a need was generated to have an effective legislation which could control the import, manufacture, distribution or sale of the drugs. Previously, only the Opium Act 1878, the Poison Act 1919 and the Dangerous Drugs Act 1930 were in force in India. But in 1927, a resolution was passed by the Council of States to the Government General in Council. So by whom it was passed? It was passed by the Council of State, and to whom? To the Government General in Council. So this resolution was passed to take an immediate action to control use of drugs, legislate to standardize preparation as well as the sale of the drugs. And because of this resolution, in 1928, means after 1 year, a committee was appointed which is called as a Drugs Inquiry Committee. In 11th August 1930, late Colonel R.N. Chopra was appointed as the chairman of this committee, that is Drug Inquiry Committee. The purpose, or you can say the role of this committee, was to recommend measures to be taken against problems of pharmacy in the country India. This committee published their report in 1931, that is after the 1 year of chairmanship of late Colonel R.N. Chopra. After publication of report of this Drug Inquiry Committee in 1932, so this is also after the 1 year, Professor Mahadeva Lal Shroff, he started pharmaceutical education at university level in Banaras Hindu University. Furthermore, in 1935, United Province Pharmaceutical Association was also developed, which is nowadays called as the Indian Pharmaceutical Association. As the time passes, in 1939, Professor M.L. Shroff, that is Professor Mahadeva Lal Shroff, started a journal publication which was given name as the Indian Journal of Pharmacy, and this journal is nowadays called as the Indian Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences. So only the difference in the name is the except the pharmacy, it is nowadays called as a pharmaceutical science, and this journal is one of the reputed journal of the pharmacy field. After 1 year, in 1940, All India Pharmaceutical Congress Association AIPCA was also established. Apart from AIPCA, in 1940, a drug bill was introduced to regulate particularly the import, manufacture, sale and distribution of drugs in British India. This bill, finally adopted as a Drugs Act of 1940, but it came into force after the 7 years of its adoption. This Drug Act is amended several times, and nowadays it is called as a Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940. As it was introduced in 1940, it is still called as a DNC Act, or you can say Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940. In 1941, after the 1 year of introduction of Drugs Act, first Drug Technical Advisory Board DTAB was constituted. Apart from this, a Central Drugs Laboratory was also established in Calcutta city. In 1945, drug rules were given under the Drugs Act of 1940. Means after the 5 years of Drugs Act, these rules were introduced. Now you might be thinking that I am talking about the different acts. So what do you mean by these acts? So the act is a law which has been passed by legislative body and approved by the President of India. And we talk about the rules, then the rules on the other hand help in governing these laws. Rules are placed to make the parent act work more effectively. Rules provide the details which might not be present or which might not be provided in the act. So once the act was passed related to the drugs in Drugs Act, after the 5 years, rules of this act were introduced. Apart from this, we discussed previously about the drugs bill. Same way, the pharmacy bill was introduced in 1945 to standardize the pharmacy education in India. In 1946, under the chairmanship of Colonel R.N. Chopra, Indian Pharmacopoeia list was published. This list contained a list of drugs which were used in India at that particular time, but these drugs were not included, or you can say present, in British Pharmacopoeia. Means only the drugs which were present in India, or you can say used in India, but which were not present or published in British Pharmacopoeia were published. In 1948, Pharmacy Act 1948 was passed. We have already seen that Pharmacy Bill was introduced in 1945, and because of that, this Pharmacy Act came into existence. In the same year, Indian Pharmaceutical Committee was also constituted under the chairmanship of Dr. B.N. Ghosh. So here the name changes. Till now we have only came across the name late Colonel R.N. Chopra. Here you need to remember the new name, that is Dr. B.N. Ghosh. Student, you might be aware of the PCI, the Pharmacy Council of India. This PCI usually come for inspection to each pharmacy colleges. So this PCI was developed, or you can say it was introduced under the Pharmacy Act in 1949. In 1954, Drugs and Magical Remedies Act 1954 was passed to stop misleading advertisements of pharmaceuticals. In 1955, Medicinal and Toilet Preparations Act 1955 was passed to provide the uniform duties for all states for alcohol containing products. Moreover, first edition of Indian Pharmacopoeia was also published in the same year. Previously, only the list of the drugs were given in 1946, but now the complete Indian Pharmacopoeia was published. In 1985, Narcotic and Psychotropic Substances Act was introduced to protect the society from danger of addictive drugs. In 1994, Government of India has introduced the Drugs Price Controls Order. This act was given to control the price of drugs in Indian pharmaceutical market. There are various other acts, rules and regulations which are present, which may create a very bright and very interesting history of Indian legislations like the Patent Act and rules, Trademark and Merchandise Marks Act, the Shop and Establishment Act, Factories Act, Industry Development and Regulations Act, etc. But here we stop with the history of Indian pharmaceutical legislations. Thank you everyone.